Hello, dudes and dudettes. It's me, H. Ivans, and this is another edition of the Radical Reset. Today, we're going to talk about the Forgotten Minorities, and I say that plurally because there are three. Now, in this fragmentalized and cancel culture that we live in, almost a day doesn't go by that a new group doesn't claim victimization. And yet, the greatest groups of all, and I'm going to say there are three of them, the ones who play by the rules, these are the minorities that I'm going to talk about today. The people that don't have children unless they're married, work really, really hard, stay in their marriages no matter what, and do everything the right way. Finish high school, play the game, live the American dream. And here's the thing. They're falling further and further behind, and they're getting angrier and angrier, and they're tired of listening to the mainstream narrative of me, and why I'm persecuted and why I'm a victim. And the three groups I'm talking about are the white working class, black conservatives, and Latino conservatives. These three groups together have made, I believe, if not intentionally, then certainly unintentionally, common cause. And that common cause is the election of Donald Trump, because they are pissed. Hillary Clinton, back in the last campaign, and I'm not going to rehash the Clinton-Trump campaign, but Hillary Clinton lost because she forgot about these minorities, and in particular the white working class. And she called them together, she had a term for this group together, she called them the basket of deplorables. Now, the hypocrisy of the left is they pretend like they didn't really mean it. In other words, Hillary said it, and then there's a lot of walking it back. That's what they always talk about when a politician says the truth, and then they're caught telling the truth, and then all their advisors tell them, "Shit, you told the truth. You've got to cover that up because the truth will never sell." They walk it back, and she walked back, calling these people the basket of deplorables. But you see. Well, there's an old Latin saying, and of course it means you have to be drunk for it to be true, but in vino veritas, in wine, truth. That comes from when people's lips get loose, and when they say things they seem to not really mean, that's the truth coming out. In fact, when I taught my children, just reflecting, and I'm not changing the subject, when my children were growing up and they were talking about dating, whether it was my boys dating girls or my girls dating boys, I used to tell them all the same thing. Always pay attention to when the person you're dating says something so out of character and out of context that it seems bizarre. And you say to yourself, "Ooh, they couldn't have meant that." And look at all these other times they've been so cool and so great. But here's the thing. All those other times they seem so cool and so great, they were on party manners. That's what dating is. When people date until that's why you have to date for at least a year before you even begin to think or talk about marriage out there, boys and girls. And that's because everybody's on party manners. They're covering up what they really think to show you the side of them that they want you to see. Well, that's nowhere is that more true than political campaigns. So when someone like Hillary Clinton calls the white working class, black conservatives, and Latino conservatives collectively the basket of deplorables, that seems out of context based on everything else her campaign said. If you read her campaign literature and you read her positions and her platforms, the word inclusion was used to the point where your eyes and ears would bleed from seeing and hearing it. But the truth is, and as I taught my children about dating, here's the connection. That's the truth. When someone does something, you're dating and someone does something that seems completely out of character. For example, you're a young woman, you're dating a guy, he's been a gentleman, he's paid for everything, he's been wonderful, and one day you get into an argument and just out of nowhere, he either calls you a name or, God forbid, slaps you, and he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I never do that." No, that's bullshit. That's the way he's going to be if you commit. That was the real guy. That was the truth sneaking out. The truth sneaks out in moments of weakness. All of us play this game. All of us in our lives don't show the whole world who we really are. And then once in a while, we get a little pissed off, or we get a little drunk, or we get a little stoned, and we say what we really mean. And that is the truth. Now, so the left does consider the white working class, the black conservative movement, and the Latino conservative movement collectively, and I'll just call them the forgotten minorities. Collectively, they are the basket of deplorables and are condescended to by the left. Now, the left pretends to care, but they're so busy pandering to every subgroup that has a grievance from hard left, Black Lives Matter, to Antifa, to the Green Movement and the insanity and the climate change movement, where the discussion on climate change has moved from science to religion, to, and when I say that, I mean that you can't discuss climate change with an activist because they simply won't listen. They take everything on faith. No fact can pierce their impervious bubble of faith. And that's the truth of all this crap on the left. The reason that people believe in socialism certainly isn't based on facts. There are no facts to support socialism or social democracy or any other kind of watered down version of it. But they insist that it can work on faith. They are just as ridiculous as everybody who they make fun of. That's my phone playing in the background that I forgot to turn off because I'm an idiot. So you'll just have to listen to Bach there for a minute in the background. But the point of the matter is, taking things on faith, is... You guys on the left, you make fun of the people on the right for believing in what you see as superstitions like religion and being pro-life and things like that. But at the very same time, you are just as bad. You've turned climate change and persecution and victimization and bullying and everything else, and you've created this generation of little gentle snowflakes who, if they detect a microaggression. And, microaggression means that you say something that's absolutely true, but someone's offended by it. So therefore, since it's a macroaggression, a big aggression would be, for example, calling a black person a nigger. But no one's going to do that because no one in their right mind, first of all, no one believes that anymore except the hard, KKK fringe nutcase group. And number two, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So instead, those looking to be persecuted, believe me when I tell you, most white people, and I know that most black people know this, most white people don't give a shit what color you are. They don't. If you don't understand that, most people, let me take away white and black. I even hate that fucking discussion. Most people are worried about how to put food on the table, how to raise their children, how to better their lives, how to better their own futures, how to achieve their career goals, things like that. They're not so worried about who's a victim and who isn't. You can waste a lot of time pursuing victimhood, and the only time it pays off is if you can somehow pander enough and bitch enough and moan enough to get the government to pay you something, which is the underlying goal of the entire bitching, pandering, complaining, victimized left. So on the right, there's this 40% of the population, the minority of the country, but yet still the largest minority of the white working class, and their natural allies, the black conservatives, and their natural allies, Latino conservatives, who all together, when they get together into groups, into conservative groups and libertarian groups, nobody talks about race. We're all just talking about freedom and liberty and free enterprise and lifting people out of poverty, and the race discussion never comes up. Yet the very absence of the race discussion on the right enrages the left, because how can you not discuss it, is what the left would say. How can you not discuss victimization? How can you not discuss the legacy of slavery? How can you not discuss the border wall? How can you not discuss the persecution of immigrants coming into this country? How can you not discuss what's happening to the dreamers? Yada, yada, yada. But the fact is, the only person who understood this group to begin with was Donald Trump. Now, I've said it before, I'll say it again. He was the wrong man, but he was elected for the right reasons. And those reasons are, if you do everything the right way, you shouldn't be persecuted. You should be celebrated. We should be celebrating the working man. We should be celebrating the people of all colors and all religions and all backgrounds who play the game the right way, who don't have children unless they're married and don't get married until they're older than 21 and finish high school or after that go to college and want a better life for their children than they have for themselves. And yet for the last 30 years approximately, since the end of the Bush 1 pregnancy, I swear to God, Joe Biden's contagious. Presidency, the middle class since the end of the Ronald Reagan and Bush presidencies have gone nowhere. They've been flat, falling further and further behind. And what the left has done is try to pander to that by what's the word I'm looking for? Breeding envy. But the fact of the matter is, envy is not a policy. There goes my phone again. We're just going to ignore these calls. It's probably people calling me to buy, extended warranties on my vehicle or something. But anyway, the bottom line is, they try to sell envy because the whole idea is that it must, the reason you're not getting ahead isn't because the left has caused the government, motivated maybe by good reason, but to basically steal half the the gross domestic product in order to pay for programs that don't work, thereby leaving less on the table for you to make money and get ahead. Instead, let's blame the rich. Let's blame the people who are exceptionally talented and exceptionally able, and they're a very, very tiny group. That's the great thing about finding scapegoats, by the way, and the left is really good at this. You want to find a scapegoat that's high profile, but there aren't that many of them. Kind of like the Jews in Germany after, before the Second World War. There really weren't that many of them. 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust, but in the context of the billion people that live, Jews are a tiny, 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 tiny minority. There are about maybe 15 to 18 million Jews worldwide, including Israel. So when you really look at it, and you look at a worldwide population of 7 billion, this is a very small group, but it's very high profile. They were in those days it was let's pick on the Jews, easy scapegoat. Now it's let's pick on the billionaires. There are very few billionaires. There's less than 1,000 of them. I mean, if you look at this, so they're easy to beat on. They have money, but they don't have the same political power. And they're really afraid to confront, because there's so few of them, just like the Jews in Germany, they're afraid to confront and give voice and speak against those in power. So the people on the left go on and on with this envy conversation, and the people at the very top go ahead and pander to it because they're afraid if they don't, they'll come after them. Anyway, if you want to read how all of this, by the way, was accurately predicted in the novel Atlas Shrugged, written in 1957, the second best-selling book of all time. It still sells over 100,000 copies a year, second only to the Bible. The number one selling book of all time is the Bible, and it predicted all of this. It's all playing out as Ayn Rand, the author and the founder of objectivism and the libertarian movement, foresaw. But anyway, back to my subject matter, which are these forgotten minorities. They're pissed off, and they're not buying the envy argument. They know it's not the billionaires. They understand that the economy is not a casino. It's not like if you get your piece, that's less for everybody else. The beauty of capitalism is that wealth is created. In other words, where did Bill Gates' money come from? Where did Microsoft's money come from? It was created out of literally thin air from the intellectual ideas and properties that were espoused by Bill Gates and the people that worked for them. If you go up to Seattle, you're going to find thousands of Microsoft millionaires, people that worked for the company, took stock in it, and shared in the profit. And this is, by the way, consistent. If you go to Austin, Texas, you're going to find the Dellionaires. These are the people that went to work for Michael Dell when he founded Dell Computer, took stock in the company, and became rich. And this goes on and on and on. The rich don't get rich alone. It's not like they live. They're the modern version of the myth of the robber baron. Back in the 19th century, and this is a repeated myth that the left is still repeating. They still will talk about the robber barons, the guys like J.P. Morgan and Andrew Carnegie and Andrew Mellon, and the list goes on, who supposedly stole their way to their riches at the expense of people in the 19th century, forgetting that it was the only century where America was truly libertarian. And during that period of time, the poor and the middle class, the poor rose to the middle class faster and with much greater, faster and greater speed, that's redundant, but faster and more effectively than they have since. In other words, it was the century of the greatest creation of wealth and the creation of the American middle class when the government got the fuck out of the way. And while the white working class today and black conservatives and Latino conservatives, working class and educated as well, might all recognize that this is true, the left just drown it out of the mainstream. The mainstream media just doesn't want to hear it. The mainstream media doesn't want to talk about history as it actually was. They want to talk about the fucking 1619 Project and claim that America was built on the backs of black slavery. And certainly black slavery was horrible, but it's a much more complicated picture than that. And the fact of the matter is the black conservatives are tired of listening to it. You don't believe me? Google on black conservatives. Go listen to people like Thomas Sowell, Jason Riley, Candace Owens. I can go on and on and on and on and on. And you're going to find, I even gave you a couple of links in the description of this episode, and you're going to find people who make very strong factual arguments. And the left doesn't deal in facts. They deal in fantasy. They deal in faith. The left, by the way, tends to be, and as I am, atheist. They'll never say it out loud. They all pretend. I love it when I see Nancy Pelosi say, I'm going to pray for these people, like she really prays. Come on, who the fuck are you kidding? You may recall an earlier episode where I said that the camera looks into your eyes and sees who you really are. Nancy, the camera looks into your eyes and sees that you're lying when you say you pray. You're not a good Catholic. If you were, you wouldn't be pro-choice. By the way, I'm pro-choice, but I'm not a Catholic. Okay, and I have a lot of room for people with pro-life, and we can have a discussion, and we can come to a reasonable compromise. But what I don't do is lie to them and tell them that I'm really, pro-life when I'm really pro-choice. I'm pro-choice, and I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God, but I have enormous respect for those that do, and I understand, that nothing's going to be gained by making fun of them. Yet the left absolutely panders and makes fun of and tries to manipulate and does it all pretending like they support the values of the working person, pretending like they support the solid values that made America. But the fact of the matter is, you cannot be a leftist, you cannot be a socialist, you cannot be a social democrat and at the same time understand the basic values that made America great, founded and based in the culture of Western Europe. And I know that as soon as I say that, Western Europe becomes white Western Europe in the minds of so many, and therefore it becomes a racist doctrine. But let's be honest, in terms of humanity, of the quality of living, Western culture, whether it's white or whatever you want to call it, is the superior culture on earth. Everybody else is emulating it. That's how you know. When you go to Japan today, the Japanese aren't running around by and large, except in, for small demonstrations of culture, which they have understandable pride in. They're not running around dressed like samurais, and the women aren't in kimonos, and the geisha is a thing of the past. It's dying off. Japan is an extremely modern country in a Western way. If you looked at it, that's what it looks like. South Korea has adopted Western values. Even fucking China, even the communist Chinese, what they're trying to do is adopt everything about the West they want. They still want to control it from the leftist side, and it won't work. The Chinese government is going to implode ultimately. But in this cancel culture that we live in, you can't even talk about that because that becomes a pejorative statement against the Chinese. When, for example, Trump says the China flu or the China bug or the China virus, whatever the fuck he calls COVID-19, he's stating a factual truth. The virus originated in China in a Chinese lab and either accidentally or I don't think on purpose, probably accidentally escaped, got into the general population. What was on purpose is because they're a leftist communist government, they covered the whole fucking thing up until it was too late in a city of Wuhan, which has enormous amounts of international travel in and out of it because it's a business center, and they caused this motherfucker. It is a Chinese virus. Now, when I say that, and I said that in a discussion this week on Facebook, I got the shit kicked out of me. Well, not really, because I didn't give a shit, but I got a lot of criticism by people saying that's very rude to Asians. I didn't say it was. Look, first of all, that shows a certain bigotry. Lumping Chinese in with all Asians is like Asian bashing. Chinese and Koreans and Japanese and the list Filipinos, Thais are as different as the day is long. They do not see each other as the same thing. Lumping them together is another form of soft racism of the left. People are all different. The Chinese are Chinese, the Koreans are Koreans. The Japanese and the Koreans, you want to see a history of people that fucking hate each other and with good reason? Read that history. You can't lump Asians together. They're very different people. But all of the Asian cultures, Taiwan as well, have all adapted Western culture as the basis, and capitalism, which is a Western idea, and freedom and liberty, except in the case of China, which, like I say, is going to implode. All of the successful cultures have adopted Western values and Western ideas, free speech, free thought, separation of church and state, all the things that make, our country the light and the beacon onto the world that it is. And yet here in our own country, the beacon of freedom and liberty and capitalism and what can happen, we are allowing ourselves to be dragged under the banner of political correctness and being woke, and a bunch of Gen Z and later butterflies who have never been told anything in their life and have been protected by their helicopter parents and have come together in this I don't know what I'd call it, this this conglomeration of arrogance. That's not the right term. I don't like that. The conspiracy of the arrogant. That's what we'll call it. The left is the conspiracy of the arrogant. They pretend to give a shit about what you and I think, but they don't. They see us as nothing but deplorables, and we all know that. The white working class, black conservatives, black Latino conservatives, and everybody else, regardless of what you are, what your color is, and I don't even want to fall into that trap. Those of us who understand, you gotta play the game the right way. You have to nurture family values. You have to have your children in the bounds of wedlock. And there's nothing wrong with going to church. I'm sorry. This is where I disagree with my fellow atheists, like Richard Dawkins and like the late Christopher Hitchens. I'm an atheist, but but I don't make fun of religion because of the values that religion teaches, and let's not pretend that one religion is the same as another. I'm sorry, but let's just be. The great minority knows that Islam is a threat, knows that Islam is a dangerous religion, knows that jihad is dangerous. And so when Trump wants to get tough on Muslims, the left, they all pretend that's some kind of, dog whistle to racism, but it's not. It's a recognition of fact. Tell me it isn't. The 19 guys that flew those fucking planes into the world, well, you see, you conspiracy theorists are going to say it never happened. It was all a government plot by the Bushes and all that bullshit. But I don't have time for stupidity, okay? The fact of the matter is, all 19 of those guys were Muslims. All the jihads are Muslims. World terrorism is Muslim. And the Muslim world, I don't want to hear that Islam is really a peaceful religion. Read Ayaan Hirsi Ali's book, Infidel. You want to read a great book on Islam and really understand what's going on by a Muslim herself, who, by the way, the fucking Muslims hate at this point. But if you want an education, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Mr. Producer, please put up the link below. Read Infidel. But anyway, I'm digressing away. The fact of the matter is, these are the people that support Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump loses this election, which I doubt, because as I said in an earlier podcast, the most telegenic candidate wins. And Donald Trump, when the campaign really starts and Joe Biden comes out of his basement and takes off his mask and appears on TV and tries to string sentences together and get interviewed in tough interviews, he's just going to come apart, and this election is going to really go to Donald Trump. But if I am wrong, and God knows I have been wrong before, and I will be wrong again. Fuck, I was wrong about the election of Trump to begin with. I really bought in. I drank the Kool-Aid. I thought Hillary Clinton was a lock. But the fact of the matter is that I underestimated. See, the thing of it is, typical polling, for example, does a 21% Republican sample on a typical poll. That's how the Gallup organization and other polls do their polling. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't measure enthusiasm, and these people are really pissed. This silent conglomeration of minorities, even though they are minority now in our country, they vote, and they vote hard, and they vote every time, and they vote in every election. And they're going to turn out. And they're going to have enthusiasm for Donald Trump once again. If anything, more enthusiasm than they did before, because if anything, they feel more persecuted than they did before, because the drumbeat of wokeness and catching every word and microaggression and raising their children like little butterflies and pretending that Christianity is stupid and I can go on and on and on and on and on, all covered up in a veneer of "we really care about you," which no one actually believes. It's all just a conglomeration of special interests on the left with a religion that's a combination of green and atheism mashed together that they cover up. No one's buying that bullshit. Everybody that I'm talking about the white working class, the black conservatives, the Latino conservatives. They know they're being pandered to and lied to, and they're going to vote. And even if they lose this election, don't think, those of you on the left, that the battle is won and the battle is over. It is only beginning. There will be another populist leader, and that populist leader, it won't be Donald Trump. It'll be someone better than Donald Trump, because the movement will mature, and it'll be somebody with less distraction. That's the problem with Donald Trump. He says such ridiculous fucking things sometimes. I don't know if I'll ever get over him giving a wink, wink, nod, nod on the Uyghurs to fucking Xi Jinping in return for supporting him on trade policy. When I read that in the Bolton book, I wanted to vomit. But, that aside, and I'm obviously a free thinker, I'll criticize everybody, but I don't. My people, the people I'm speaking to, the people I hope are going to listen to me both now and in the future, are these the forgotten minority. The white working class people who do everything right, the black working class people and conservatives who do everything right, the Latino working class people and conservatives do everything right. Man, if I were a Latino and my family came into this country the right way, and I was a U.S. citizen, and I sent my kids to school and worked hard and taught all the right values and went to Catholic church every Sunday, by and large, although there's a large movement among Latinos of evangelism. But, I don't want to, that's a longer discussion, which I'm never going to have because I don't want to go into long religious discussions. Anyway, the point of the matter is, these people have all played it the right way, and now they're supposed to be automatically on the side of illegal immigrants. And let me tell you something, illegal immigrants, this is what the media didn't catch. Free trade and immigration are two different issues, and Donald Trump, this is why he's the wrong guy. He conflates them too. Free trade is always a good thing. Trump is absolutely wrong about that. The freer the trade, the more money everybody makes. But that's not immigration. Low-wage immigration has hurt the white working class, has hurt the black working class, has hurt the Latino working class. And I know plenty of Mexican Americans down here in Arizona where I live who are, and I hate to make, there's nothing to me more pandering than saying some of my friends are Latino. Almost all of my, not all, but almost all of my friends are Latino. And that's just because I live in Arizona, which is, I don't know, and I worked in Mexico for years and years, and I had a second home there, and I don't know, I'm just very comfortable with the culture, and I hate to even bring it up. I only do to give some credibility to what I'm saying in the sense that I'm immersed in the culture. I'm fluent in Spanish. I've, lived between the two countries. I understand what's going on, and I'm telling you that there is an enormous, still a minority, but a very, almost a majority of Latino Americans who played the game the right way, who just find this whole thing repulsive. And, they're in favor of the fucking wall. They're in favor of not letting in low-income workers to replace American workers. You want to pick fruit, you want to bring in guest workers, that's fine. But, you do it legally. And there has to be legal, and, Trump to his blame has not come up with a legal channel to bring in. There are certain jobs that Americans won't take, like picking fruit and working in the lettuce fields down in Yuma, Arizona, and picking tomatoes in the San Joaquin Valley in the summer. I've done it, by the way, because my family was in the produce business and they wanted to teach me why you should go to college. So work for one summer in a tomato field and you'll figure out why. But the point of the matter is, most Americans wouldn't take those jobs of any color, but that's an easy problem to solve. If you have an intelligent discussion and you get all the fucking emotion out of it, and you get down and discussing the way things ought to be, these are all solvable problems, but we've got to be careful to protect the people that play the game the right way. And that's what Donald Trump speaks to. That's what populism speaks to. That's what these people, and I'll tell you what else is going to happen while I'm sitting here and waxing on. The Republican Party is going to break up, because what the mainstream Republican Party, the intellectual Republican Party, doesn't understand is this gigantic minority that doesn't have any other spokesman today but Donald Trump. But that will change. There will be other charismatic leaders that come into that group. They will continue to be a political force. And in the end, what this is going to end up being is a debate, in my view, between literally good and evil. Good being the people who play the game the right way, work hard and earn what they get, and the people who want to pander and take from those who do play the game the right way, all based upon a dialogue of victimization that in the minds of most people, it's not that those of us on the right and those of us who listen to this dialogue of victimization don't understand that there are points to be made. Certainly Black Lives Matter has a couple of good points. Certainly there are good points to be made on the left in certain areas. But look, here's the thing. Fundamentally, the system worked before you fucked it up. The reason we're struggling today is it's fucked up by the government taking too much of good money out of circulation. When in the 19th century, the middle class was forming and people were rising up out of poverty in basically a libertarian, unregulated America, the federal government only ate 3% of the national income versus the over half that it does today. And there's just no way that can turn out well. And how they cover up the loss in productivity by stealing half the money is by printing money out of thin air, and that's not going to turn out well. And the people in the forgotten minority, it's not that they can necessarily make an intellectual argument with these. The unfortunate fact is people go to college and get arrogant. These people on the left, they go to college, they get their degrees, and they actually begin to believe their own bullshit like their shit doesn't stink. And they think that, and because they know a few fancy terms and they can cite a few quotes, and they can go to books and discuss Marx and Engels and Lenin, they feel like they're fucking superior, and they look at the European model. What they see are wise people like themselves, helping them. The forgotten minority, the way they look at it is they're all too fucking stupid. They're a basket of deplorables that need to be helped, and we're just the people to do it, as if they could. And they take this not in any fact. There's no statistics that back this up. There's no successful model of central control of anything. Not once, not in the history of mankind. But the irony in all of this is they're the nutcase religious ones. They're the ones who buy into a crazy doctrine. They're the ones that buy into shit that doesn't work. Not the decent people on the right, not the people that go to church on Sunday, not the people that play the game by the rules, not the people that do everything right. The people on the left, the very intellectuals who think they're smarter than everybody else, are the most religious in the sense that North Korea is a religious state. You know, think about it. You know, you even have a trinity. You've got the, you know, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, and Kim Il-sung. Kim Il-sung, though he's dead, is still the Father, the Son, and now there's the Holy Spirit. You know, it's the same fucking thing. The left thinks they don't do religion, and they do. They're far more doctrinaire. They're far more rigid. They're far more smothering than anything that takes place on the right. And not just on the right, but among the decent people. All the decent people want to do is go to work, do the right thing, be left the fuck alone by the government, stay out of their goddamn business, and allow their incomes to rise and stop stealing half the national income, suppressing them. And don't blame the fucking successful people. That's a bullshit story. You on the left know it, I know it, and you know what? So do all the people that support Donald Trump on the right. Donald Trump's the wrong guy, but the right one's going to come along. Don't think you're going to escape. If by some fucking sad event, and I am not a Trump supporter, but compared to Joe Biden, I am. I mean, I would personally vote for Joe Jorgensen, the Libertarian, but that's another discussion for another day. But having said that, and I know those of you who are Trump supporters are saying, if you vote for Joe Jorgensen, that's taking votes away from Donald Trump. No, not really. You don't understand libertarians. They come from both groups, and we don't really give a shit if we're on the winning team. What is that thing, by the way? The reason we don't elect decent third-party candidates in this country is that people have this weird need to be on the winning team as if like they're going to be tallied up and collect. You know, you want to vote for someone who gets it right, vote for Joe Jorgensen. You know, you want to vote for a female president, vote for Joe Jorgensen. You want to vote for somebody who has a brain in her head, vote for Joe Jorgensen. But in the meantime, I didn't mean to get into a libertarian thing, and I'm an anti-politist. In the end, I think all politism sucks. I'm just talking about the present that I live in, not the anti-political future we will ultimately achieve, because I intend to be the charismatic leader of anti-politism, only I have absolutely no interest in holding office. Anti-politism is antithetical to that. It's all about anti-politism all boils down to basically turning America into Switzerland, where we're all participatory in democracy, and we all get to have our voice on everything, and yet we are not politicians. But read the book, A Radical Reset, which you can pick up free at Amazon, or for a slight charge if you prefer paperback over the electronic version. But anyway, that's it. I'm all done. Here it is. Let's sum up the points I was trying to make today. Point number one, okay? Point number one. Donald Trump exists for a reason. Point number two, why? Because there's a huge forgotten minority made up of the white working class, black and Latino conservatives that get no voice in the mainstream, but who are just as pissed and, unlike the left, actually have factual legs to stand on. Every statistic, every measure is on their side, and yet somehow the left has gained a foothold, not just a foothold, a stranglehold, both on our university system and on our press. And they've done this through intellectual arrogance, okay? And basically listening to only their own bullshit while they pander to us on the right and pretend to give a shit, and they don't. And the fight is only just beginning. So, where should you be on this? You should be an anti-politist. Join us at antipolitism.org. Join us in the movement. Pick up a copy of A Radical Reset. Click on the subscribe button. Click on the notification button. Tell your friends about what we've got going on here. We are the true third way. In the end, we're either going to have a civil war or we're going to be anti-politists. Let me just tell you that, my friends. We're coming to a fracturing of this country. We're either going to fracture the country or save it through anti-politism, because socialism in any form just fucking isn't going to work. And unfortunately, capitalism hasn't existed in this country since the 19th century and isn't going to, because of the military-industrial complex, which is just as dangerous as the leftist complex, which is why I'm not a Republican, but that's another conversation for another day. Okay, end of today's diatribe. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, this is E.H. Ivins signing off.